So first of all, I want to start off by saying that our battle is a spiritual battle. It's a warfare between good versus evil. You either on the side of good, which is of love, or you on the side of evil, which is of hatred. No, there no such thing as racism. It has never existed. Racism has never existed. No such thing as white supremacy. No such thing as Muslimism, anti-Semitism. All these dumb words that they create, the evil people create, they don't exist. It's either right or it's wrong, it's good or it's evil. And if you don't love one person, if you don't love one person on this earth, even your enemy, if you don't love them, you love no one. If you don't love your enemy, if you don't love the people who persecute you and do you wrong, you can't love God. You can't love your mother, your father, your children. And I'm just speaking for the children of God, so we can win this war. If you don't love all, you love none. And so, in my last video, I spoke about this critical race theory. It's something that this is mind blowing to me because I knew some of these things, and this video might be a little bit quick. I knew some of these things, but I didn't know them to this extent, and I didn't know that all of this was being hidden and lied to us about. You hear the blacks and the crazy liberals and stuff, and they always talk about slavery. The blacks are suffering. Blacks are not suffering due to slavery or Jim Crow or so-called no such thing as systemic racism, white privilege. They're not suffering due to those false lies. They're suffering due to the destruction of the family and the lack of moral character. Most black people do not, not all, most of them do not believe in God. And the proof is in the pudding. I'm not just saying it. You can go to church and quote the Bible and read the Bible, but even the ones who are not engaged in these things, in this black on black crime, abortion, out of wedlock birth, even the ones who are not engaged in it, the Christians and the non-Christians, they don't speak out about evil. And the Bible even says to not confront evil, to not speak out against it, to not stand against evil. It's evil. And we don't see most black people standing up against unrighteousness. You don't see it. You may have one or two of them, but those one or two, they will be hated. And the rest of them will fear and step to the side and let the people go to hell. They just won't speak the truth. And so that's evil that they're not speaking the truth. But you hear them talking about slavery and stuff like that. And so I recommend you guys check out a man. I think he's a pastor. His name is David Barton out of Wall Builders, from Wall Builders. And he's been saying this for a very long time. He's been standing up for good. So shout out to David Barton. And I got this information from him. But about this slavery, the lies, and they want to bring up the 1619 Project and all this stuff. And some of the stuff that they be saying, some of it may be true, but they just don't tell the full thing and what's going on. And so 40%, and I'm just going to run through these really fast, and then I may touch on a few of these things. But so 40% of free blacks owned slaves in North Carolina. 40% of free blacks owned slaves in North Carolina. And if I'm not mistaken, it was 42%, because I didn't write that one down. But if I'm not mistaken, it was 42% of free blacks in Louisiana in the Deep South. Free blacks owned other blacks, slaves. Native Americans had the highest percentage of owning black slaves, according to the Chickasaw Indian Agency. They found an article from the Indian Times way back in the 1800s, and it's reported that Native Americans had the highest percentage of owning black slaves. Mind blowing. There were white slaves during the Civil War in America. In the 16th century, there were more white slaves than black slaves in the New World. So in the 16th century, there were more white slaves in total than black slaves in total in the New World. Mind blowing, isn't it? They don't talk about that. America was the first nation to ban the slave trade. And using our U.S. Navy, the United States went to Africa to stop the slave trades on the coast. So they bought the slaves and they went back and stopped the slave trade to the same places that they went to buy the slaves. And they don't even say that the Arabs and the Muslims were the ones who sold the blacks around the world. It wasn't the whites. The whites didn't just go to Africa selling blacks around the world. It was the Muslims, the Arabs, who took the black slaves and sold them around the world. And the blacks were owned by other blacks in Africa. Isn't that mind blowing? And America was the fourth nation overall to ban slavery. Period. To ban slavery, period. And to touch on that, there are 195 nations today. 94 nations still to this day. I'm talking about right now in 2021. It is July 2021. 94 nations in the world still have not criminalized slavery. Out of 195, 94 nations still have not criminalized slavery. And more than 40 million slaves, active slaves, are in this world today. Isn't that mind-blowing? Isn't that mind-blowing, folks? And so they also don't talk about the black history. You know, they always talk about black history and it's all about slavery. So blacks were elected in offices in Maryland in 1641. There were blacks in political positions in 1641. I thought this system was against the blacks. I thought it was against the blacks. And this was 1600. That's a very long time ago when they say the blacks came in 1619. What is that, 22 years later? Also in New Hampshire in 1768 and Pennsylvania. Also blacks were elected in offices in New Hampshire in 1768. Blacks were elected in office in Pennsylvania in 1793. And I'm sure there's more states, but this is just a little glimpse of what I reported on, what David reported on, which I got the information from. And also the 1619 Project in Massachusetts in 1642. The second slave ship had landed in America in 1642 in Massachusetts. The Christians, the white Christians, freed the slaves and imprisoned slave owners. I rest my case. Our battle is spiritual, folks. It is about good versus evil. You have a wicked heart, which is of hatred, or you have a righteous heart, which is of love. This has nothing to do. These are lies, folks. Black people have been played a game on. I've been saying it for so long. Black people, you have been trained to be angry. You have been trained to have hatred in your heart. God don't care about the cause. Oh, I hate them because of slavery. First of all, you were never enslaved. You were never enslaved. Your grandparents, they were never enslaved. So you're hating someone for no reason. And Christ said, anyone who has anger against a brother or sister is subject to judgment. I'm telling you, folks, blacks have been played a game on. The stuff that they've been teaching y'all is not true, folks. And white folks, y'all need to speak up and tell the truth to the blacks so they can know, so they can return to God, so they can return to the Father. But hatred, they must take the hatred out of their hearts. They've been lied to. And as long as you believe a lie, you will be damned. We are a spirit. The people who love slavery, it had nothing to do with color. It's because their hearts were wicked. And we see the Christians who freed slaves and did right. It's because they had love. They were of God. That's why. It's all a game. So black people, do what y'all want. I know only one or two will accept the truth, but keep having hatred in your heart and see how far. Look how far it's gotten you. to hold things against people. See how far it's gotten you. It's not gonna do you any good. Thank you, David Barton, for that information, because that's mind blowing to me. And I know a lot of people won't even talk about it, but we got to get this truth up. We got to get the truth out. It's a spiritual battle, folks.